it's a joy now to welcome Jane Roman Pitt to our webinar. Jane has a rare, highly refined voice that I feel awakens the most delicate celestial impulses in the listener's awareness. Jane is an award-winning singer, songwriter, composer who has recorded 6 albums of music that are universally appealing in their ability to uplift and inspire a deep sense of peacefulness. Her compositions and choral music are performed internationally, and she is an exponent on consciousness-based music. If everybody can just remember to keep their mics muted, please. Thank you. Her writings on the power of calming music are regular features in magazines and podcasts, and Jane is a longtime teacher of transcendental meditation. She directed one of the first quiet time programs for consciousness-based education at the Nataki Talibar Schoolhouse of Detroit. And she is a mother and grandmother and lives in the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina, not far from where Sharon and I live. And Jane is currently working on a lullaby project after her music video. I think she will tell us more about it. It'll be very interesting. I can just imagine that any child listening to one of Jane's lullabies would easily melt into a blissful, peaceful state of sweet sleep. So let's hear from Jane Roman Pitt first, and then go on to hear what she has to say.
I am the mountain, I am the sky, I am the swallow, I fly and fly. I am the meadow, I nurse the lamb. I am the river, I am. We're bound together, this world and me. I am a part of the things I see. I am of nature, it is of me. I'm of my maker, I am.
Well, thank you for that introduction, and thank you for organizing this really wonderful. I've enjoyed so much hearing other musicians' experiences with the creative process, knowing that we have so much in common in terms of our backgrounds and our methods of understanding creativity. I'm so glad to be here today. So here's the story about that song. Although I have written many songs throughout the years, this one is one that I learned when I was 17. It was for a college production of Spoon River Anthology. And when I heard it, I felt, even before I had started meditating, that this song contained the essence of what I was searching for, as we all do as 17-year-olds. Well, many of us here today felt that way. There was some searching going on, and I felt like somehow this song had something to do with that. A few years later, after I had started transcendental meditation, and I was about to become a TM teacher, I had the chance to sing it for Maharishi, partly thanks to Paul Fauerso, who welcomed me to share the stage one evening on a boat ride. By that time, I had gained some understanding of what consciousness is, and some understanding of the higher states of consciousness as described by Maharishi. And then I realized that this song was a description of unity consciousness, that supreme state where all of nature and all of creation is recognized as one's own self. I loved this song so much that I sang it for every possible occasion because it seemed to fit every possible occasion. And then I sang it as our favorite lullaby for my own children and then my grandchildren. I felt like I was sharing something important with them, sort of a secret, on a very subtle and quiet level. Recently, as Raja Anthony mentioned, I've become fascinated with lullabies. It's that universal genre of music that is always on that quiet level. I learned that virtually every culture on earth has a tradition of singing lullabies, and that these lullabies are surprisingly similar, despite huge differences in cultures and language and time periods. Lullabies go back to the very beginning of our human history. In fact, it's very likely that before we were communicating through speech, we were trying to get babies to go to sleep by crooning to them. It worked, and so we kept on doing it. We didn't need scientific proof back then, but now studies confirm that singing lullabies has very important physical and emotional benefits for both the child and the singer. Well, one reason for this is because when we share music with other people, this has been brought up, our brain waves sync up, and as Paul said, our hearts begin to beat together, and that's literal. That's scientific studies have showed that our hearts actually start to beat in sync when we are either making music together or listening to music together. So we see this in choirs and in jazz groups and in huge stadium rock concerts. Then the pandemic came and showed us that this works even when we are not in the same place. So I found that singing to my grandson over Zoom was still a wonderful experience. We also know this because when there are many of us listening to a Maharishi Gandharva-Veda concert from halfway around the world, we can still clearly feel the effects. And as we meditate longer and become more and more grounded in that blissful silence that we experience in meditation, we have more bliss and more silence to share with others through our music. This is one of the points that Raja Anthony brought up. And that could mean quietly singing to a baby in a darkened room at bedtime, or it could mean sharing our music with thousands of people at a concert, as Brenda Boozer does. I heard that Maharishi had called this the circle of silence. This happens when performers who know how to transcend share music with an audience, and that makes the audience transcend too, as was pointed out. And then the audience sends that deeper collective consciousness back to the performers, allowing them to go even deeper, and then they communicate that depth right back to the audience again, and so on, and so on, and so on. And that's why music and live performances can be such a deep and personal experience. But just remember, I think for everybody who's listening today, this doesn't happen only to trained musicians. Making music is a human instinct. And sharing the music that comes from our hearts is what we all should be doing. So thank you for letting me join today, and for just all the organization that this has required. It's deeply appreciated, and we're so happy to be part of this and to share our thoughts and music. Big or deaf.
Thank you so much, Jane. Beautifully expressed. You brought out some lovely points of knowledge there in terms of this value of consciousness. It's interesting, isn't it, that lullabies have those qualities of gentleness, sweetness, calmness, peacefulness, which everybody needs in life, in the fast pace of life that is dominating everything that goes on around us. But even the child, the baby, that sweet consciousness that they have, which is not yet developed in terms of understanding at all, really, but on that deep level of instinct, on that most refined level of the child's awareness, those qualities of peacefulness, gentleness, and all that, which are nearest to transcendence, that will naturally connect with that level of consciousness of the baby. And so it immediately identifies with those qualities. And of course, if the singer or the mother, the parents are meditating, then of course that transcendence is very, very, that depth of silence is there, and it will have that very penetrating effect on the child. Very, very powerful in that way. Absolutely beautiful for the development of the baby to have those qualities of transcendence, peacefulness there in its young life. Very, very nourishing indeed. So it's a beautiful project that you're working on. And we'd love to hear more about it at some point. Exactly, are you thinking of developing an album of lullabies, or you're writing about it, you're researching it?
That is right. Yes, I'm working on a book about some of the things I mentioned, the history and the fun stories behind some of the lullabies. Like, why is there a song about a baby dropping out of a tree with the cradle? And there's just so many interesting stories in these very old legends, really. Some of them are many, 4,000 or so years old, is the first lullaby that was written down. But I'm doing this in collaboration with the Carnegie Hall Lullaby Project. And that's a fabulous program that helps people to bond with their children by helping them to write a lullaby for that child. And so the creative aspect of it is just so nourishing and health giving that they have over 40 partners all over the world involved in these kind of projects. So it's very exciting to be working with them.
Very, very lovely indeed. Yeah. And if we could bring TM to them as well, then they get, they can deepen that value of the lullabies. Very nice. Thank you so much. Absolutely fascinating. Very interesting. It's now my great pleasure to introduce Brenda Boozer. Brenda has had, we could say, a triumphant career, which has spanned over a decade at the Metropolitan Opera of New York. She has performed leading mezzo-soprano roles with many of the world's most prestigious opera companies, including the Paris Opera, Covent Garden, Lyric Opera of Chicago, San Francisco Opera, Frankfurt Opera, Netherlands Opera, Teatro di Santiago, Chile, Teatro Comunale in Florence, Italy, Houston Grand Opera, and Santa Fe Opera. She has sung with the great conductors Carlo Maria Giulini, with whom she recorded Meg Page in the Grammy-nominated Deutsche Grammophon, recording of Verdi's Falstaff, James Levin, Seiji Ozawa, Eric Leindorf, and Riccardo Chailly. Maestro Eric Leinsdorf prepared and coached her Count Octavian for the Metropolitan Opera. The noted French baritone Martial Singha taught her the role of Carmen, which she has performed internationally. Brenda holds a Bachelor of Arts in Music, Bachelor of Science from Florida State University. She completed graduate work in the Professional Studies program at Juilliard and was a finalist in the coveted Metropolitan Opera National Auditions in New York, which launched her operatic career. And fortunately for us, Brenda is an advisor to the Academy of Arts for Enlightenment and is on the administrative board of our Maharishi Peace Palace in Boone, North Carolina. So now it's a great joy to listen to a delightful rendition by Brenda, and then we'll be hearing from her.
And I offer this song. It's called A Simple Song, and it was composed in the 17th century. The accompaniment was composed by Dr. Floyd Lallerstadt from Juilliard and the Curtis Institute of Music in Philadelphia.
Simple, 'tis the gift to be free, 'tis the gift to come down where you ought to be. And when we find ourselves in this place just right, 'twill be in this valley of love and delight. Simplicity is gained, to power and to gain we shan't be ashamed to turn. Turn will be our delight, till by turning, turning we come round right. 'Tis the gift to be simple, 'tis the gift to be free, 'tis the gift to come down where you ought to be. And when we find ourselves in this place just right, 'twill be in this valley of love and
Thank you. I love that song. It's a folk song. That is one aspect of the opera singer, and actually much harder than making huge amounts of sound. The soft singing is actually more challenging, and we just feel like you take a nice big breath and you release the breath, and you, as a singer, you ride the breath. So that was an example of that. So I was thinking, what is an opera singer? I want to speak about that. What are the demands? And why is transcendental meditation so important? So I thought I would look up what I do. I've never done that. An opera singer is a specified performer who trains extensively in music and theater in order to perform opera, a celebrated and demanding dramatic form that combines musical score and text. So all of that is true. So how does it start? It starts with nurture and nature. It starts with having a voice, which you can discover as a child. You just start making these sounds. And as my grandmother said, hearing me sing to my dolls at 5 years old, you are going to be an opera singer when you grow up. Well, I didn't even know what that was. And at 12, I wanted to be a rock star. I wanted to be writing songs and singing like Paul. But that wasn't the kind of voice I was given. So at first it takes the voice, and then it takes enormous physical strength, but health in the body. So at 5 years old, my mother had me begin in ballet. So the body is strong. And then when the voice begins to change, we have boy sopranos, it's a matter of a huge amount of physical power in the body, huge amount of breath, and from the stability of the body, from the power of the abdominals, moving the breath out into what the Italians call the mask. You must move the sound through the mask. So the mask is actually your face. This is the vibration where the real power is. And so it's the science of sound. So let's take a day in the life of an opera singer. Let's look at the Metropolitan Opera. 3,700, 4,000 seats. And often I sang with big orchestras. They're different sizes, but there can be 110 musicians in the orchestra. And the orchestra is a little lower than we are on the stage. And then, of course, you have no amplification. So it is natural. And to be at that level, the production has to be at its height, like an Olympian. And that is many, many years of practicing, many years, every single day of working the voice, training the voice. In fact, the opera singers get up and say, "Oh, I wonder how my voice is today," as if it is separate from them. Then they can blame it on the voice if they have a cold, or the voice if they don't think it sounds good. What is perfection? How do we train the physiology? There's repetition and pattern. Repetition and pattern. And whether it's tennis, whether it's the Olympics, but the pattern must be perfect. The pattern is perfect. So once the pattern is created that is perfect, we must repeat that pattern and then practice this for hours and hours. So let's take a classical pianist. Practice for 10 hours a day. He's ready to make his Carnegie Hall debut as a solo pianist. Everything perfect. He feels great. His family's there. His favorite New York critic is there to criticize him. That's what critics do. Find fault. That's great, isn't it? And right before he goes on the stage, there's a knock, and they said, "Oh, by the way, the critic that loves you and always writes great things about you and never criticizes you is not coming. But the other critic is coming." Now, what happens to the physiology? It's fear, enormous pressure, which there always is enormous pressure because it's at the moment. No take two, no films, no could we try that again? It is the moment. And he collapses, or his whole physiology changes. Why? Because the mind and the body are in intimate relationship. Yet, what about the mind? So we've trained for years and years, everything's perfect in the body, but the mind. So that's where TM comes in. That's where meditation comes in. And in order to survive that pressure, which many haven't, Glenn Gould stopped in his 40s. He's a great pianist from Canada because he couldn't take the pressure. So he went into a recording studio where it's just he and the piano. And it's so fun to hear him because, he's humming and just completely free with his art. But as a performer, you have to be completely free with your art while you're performing. So transcendental meditation, the body and the mind. We have to understand what thoughts are, to know the unchanging nature of the indweller inside of your physiology, the soul, it's often called, the jiva, that place that our great teacher has taught us to go to twice a day in meditation, so that there can be coherence in the brain in coordination with the coherence of the body. We just can't leave the mind out. So that is the importance, and especially for performers, because of the enormous pressure, the enormous demands of that pattern in the repetition to be perfect at all times. And then it sort of means nothing if we don't really have our own inner indweller and that unchanging part of us that is beyond the relative, that is the absolute. And that is why TM is important. And for all of us. And so I would say to all of you, what I do now so much, I still sing, but I don't perform as much, but I teach. And one of the things that I love about the human voice is that there are approximately 8 billion people on the earth today. Every single vocal timbre is unique. And think about it. And it's also the voice of your soul. You pick up the phone to your friend, you talk to her every day. Hello, you know her by the sound of her voice. And then you say, are you okay? Or so the voice, the first thing we see in a person is their physiology. The second thing we hear is their sound. And so begin to have the joy of this vibration moving through your body and how it's connected through the physiology, through the power of breath. And it's just a beautiful thing. And then we can begin to appreciate and really work on our voice. As we get older, the voice drops. Maybe you've noticed that you sound a little deeper than you did when you were 40. Well, all of those things are just a slight disconnect from the power, the abdominals, which move the air through the sounding board, through the body. And it all matters. And so great gratitude, Raj Anthony, to you for creating this beautiful art of enlightenment. And we all have creativity within us. We're all a poet deep inside. And all of these beautiful qualities that make up that unchanging nature of the indweller is within all of us. And that can be expressed in many ways and most beautifully to our world. So I feel that opera is the ambassador of creating beauty, of creating music, which all cultures have, and bringing heaven to earth. Jai Gurudev, thank you.
Very lovely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Brenda. Gosh, what a delight. It's very interesting to get that insight into the nature of that high-level performer in this field of opera. As you said, no amplification, this vast opera hall, thousands of people, a whole orchestra. You're acting, often singing in a different language, which you have to be extremely proficient at, I understand. Italian, German, French, so on. And to be able to hold all those components together, be in the moment, be in the zone, and hit the peak of your performance. Because I think, you know, if you make one slip, that critic is going to get you, and then you're all over the press, and very possibly it could ruin your career. I mean, I think just it's testament to your success that you could maintain that in 15 seasons of the Metropolitan Opera at New York at that level and performing in all these opera houses across the world. What to say of all the, you know, the travel and the time change and the different diets and yet retaining that level of accomplishment when you get out on that stage and doing what has to be done. It's absolutely remarkable. And I just can't imagine how anybody could do that without being under tremendous strain. But if you've got the support of the transcendent, what a boon that is to take care of that stress and allow you to be in the moment, because this is what we do when we transcend. Allow the consciousness, the awareness to settle down, to go away from all the the distortion of life, all the diversity, and synthesize in that field of total knowledge the self, the totality of the self, which is absolutely simple, natural field of pure contentment and peace. And then coming out of that, bringing that with you and giving all that you need to give. It's all performers need TM without a doubt. Absolutely marvelous. Thank you so much. It's such a joy. Brenda embodies that naturalness in her personality, in her beautiful voice, and in everything that she does. That's why we call her the voice of natural law. So our last guest is Pandit Sugato Bhaduri. He's a Maharishi Gandharva-Veda performer who specializes in the mandolin. As a schoolboy, Sugatoji learned vocal music and performed on All India Radio. During his college years, he became fascinated with instrumental music and received lessons in the mandolin, and subsequently devoted himself to Indian classical music. Over the next 17 years, he studied under the renowned Sarodia Pandit T.N. Majumdar and attended workshops conducted by the legendary musician Ustad Ali Akbar Khan. In 2001, he was awarded the prestigious Sulmani title, and in 2012, he was awarded the prestigious Gandharva-Ratna title. His crystal clear variegated ekara tans and rhythmic intricacy are particularly notable and highly regarded. A profound emotionalism combined with a penetrating intellect towards the rag and use of sound techniques are features of his particular music. The deep resonant tone of his instrument evokes shades of the veena, rebab, sarod, and the sitar. Since 2005, Sugato has been touring European countries and has performed at many international music festivals. In October of 2014, he represented India at the International Silk Road Music Festival in Yerevan, Armenia. Sugatoji practices transcendental meditation, and after meeting Maharishi and receiving his guidance and direction, he decided to dedicate his life to performance and propagation of Maharishi Gandharva-Veda music for the health, enlightenment, and of all, and creation of world peace. The Academy of Arts for Enlightenment is honored to promote Sugato as one of the world's leading Maharishi Gandharva-Veda performers. And as it's in the middle of the night in India, he's not able to be here live. So he has provided us with his music video recorded some years ago at a Meru concert, and then we'll hear a recording of his talk. So we'll now go ahead with Sugatoji.
Raja Anthony ji for giving me this nice opportunity to say a little bit about Maharishi Gandharva-Veda. Maharishi Gandharva-Veda is, first of all, not just music to entertain people. As all of you know, it works on a very fine level of human analysis, human sense. So naturally, it can impact on your physiology as well as in the mental plane, in the mental level. Maharishi Gandharva-Veda, the basic of Maharishi Gandharva-Veda is Vedic ragas, like different melodies, and we have more than 75,000 melodies existing in our system. And in all these ragas, we can see like different ragas are using different notes, and different notes having different frequency can put impact. And how it can put impact, there are basically two ways. Like one, what you listen through your auditory organ, and through the tympanic membrane vibration and the changes in our cochlear region in the auditory organ. First, the sound put impact on the cerebral hemisphere, and immediately you can see like a person listening to Maharishi Gandharva-Veda, he calms down. So from the word go, you start to feel that you are going away from stress level. And the second organ, that is our skin, another sense. Like among five senses, skin is also very important, because once it is getting hot and humid, immediately you start to feel, you start to sweat. If it is cold, immediately you are getting goosebumps. So these different frequencies are received by the sensory nerve endings beneath our epidermis and endodermal layer. And all these sensory nerve endings are connected with our vertebral column, with our spinal cord. And once you start to receive, you start to absorb this specific sound vibration or frequencies, immediately it starts to impact in your body to control the doshas. Because while hearing, it is putting an impact in our brain, and through that impact, the cerebrospinal fluid, CSF, the fluid flowing through our spines, the circulation comes to an optimal level. And the optimum circulation of cerebrospinal fluid can really give you the higher level of concentration so that you can focus. And obviously it is taking the stress out of you. So the disease like insomnia or, nervousness, sleeping disorder, different disease, you can get rid of those diseases. And through our skin, the frequencies are absorbed. That puts impact on kapha, pitta, and vata. That is the fire element, water element, and air element. So coming out of stress means it can control the hypertension. And once you are getting rid of hypertension, you can get better effect to control the blood sugar. So the key factors in modern life, if you can control the stress, you can get rid of blood sugar, that is the glucose level in the blood, as well as you can get rid of insomnia. At the same time, you are attending a mind which can focus better. So you are already, achieving this higher level of concentration. You are already in the threshold of higher level of consciousness. If I can't focus, if I can't concentrate, if I'm getting stress level very high, if I can't sleep in the night, so you see all sort of disorder and problem will arise. So basically, Gandharva-Veda can take you out of all these problems. So once this major area is sorted, then you can think of, living a better life, peaceful life, and what Maharishi Ji and Gurudeva Brahmananda Saraswati has said, to achieve higher level of consciousness. And once you achieve higher level of consciousness, then you are not the same person anymore. This is how I see Maharishi Gandharva-Veda. It is not just a music to entertain people. Rather, I, being a Gandharva myself, I take it like a healing medicine, which is helping me for inner search. Once again, thank you very much for giving me the scope to say a few words about blissful Maharishi Gandharva-Veda and its impact. Thank you very much. Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev, and thank you to Sugato Ji for giving us such a beautiful wave of knowledge and revealing to us the great value of this Vedic approach to music. Gandharva-Veda comes from the ancient Vedic tradition of India. Maharishi said it is the music of heaven on earth. And it has those frequencies which Maharishi described as being essentially self-referral, because the Vedic sounds emerge directly from that field of the unified field of natural law, the basic level of creation, and in fact give rise to all potential vibrations that emerge as sound and then ultimately in the field of music. Gandharva is related to Samaveda. It's the Upaveda of Samaveda. So it is directly connected to the 4 Vedas, which has its source in the field of virtual fluctuations of all creation. So Gandharva is grounded directly in the fundamental dynamics of creation. So when they play those melodies, there is a certain structure to the raga, but at the same time, there is this freedom of virtuosity and improvisation by the musician. So it's very interesting. Sometimes it can get very abstract if you listen to some of the vocal performers or some of the instrumentals, extremely, almost bordering, we could think in a certain sense on Western jazz, not quite going that far, but it's because it's just connected to that most abstract level of creation where sound is emerging into the relative, very, very fundamental level of life. So when the Gandharva musician performs his music, and particularly if he's practicing TM, then his consciousness is directly connected to that field. And then he's enlivening that music directly from there and giving expression through these frequencies, which then spread throughout the entire creation. Maharishi says Gandharva-Veda is a technology, it's a Vedic technology to create peace in the world. And that is why he inspired this vision to have 1,000 Maharishi Gandharva-Veda schools all around the world, all the students practicing these melodies, these constantly enlivening that level of life to purify the atmosphere, to create balance in nature and balance in all of creation. So it's a beautiful gift, another beautiful gift of Maharishi, this technology of Maharishi Gandharva-Veda music. And it's wonderful that we have some musicians from India who are extremely dedicated to trying to fulfill that mission of Maharishi. Before we close out, I just wanted to invite our panel. I think 1 or 2, I know that Dr. Skevington maybe had to leave, and if any others would like to make some final comments, you're welcome to speak as you wish. Raj, Rajeshri, Emily, is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, I'm not sure what to add. I'm just so grateful and just I've appreciated listening to all the music and to hear the background of it and to hear how it relates to consciousness and how much Maharishi has given us in his supreme knowledge, being able to create marvelous musicians. I'm just expressing my gratitude. I don't know if I have more knowledge to impart at this moment, but thank you for giving me the opportunity.
I just wanted to refer to a book that David Lynch wrote called Catching the Big Fish, which is, David has his own very unique way of expressing Maharishi's knowledge. I mean, he's a great proponent of TM and claims to have never missed a meditation in 55 years or something like that. But he wrote this great book, and I liked what he said at the beginning of it. And this goes out to anyone who wants to create anything that is, whether it's art or a business or you're an athlete, you know, everyone wants to be contributing something on the highest level. So, and of course, in the arts, that's definitely true. And what he said at the beginning of the book was, ideas are like fish. So if you want to catch some little fish, you can just kind of troll around on the surface because that's where all the little fish live. But if you want to catch big fish, big ideas, then you have to dive deep because that's where the big fish swim. And he said, and they're very beautiful. So I think that's such a great way of expressing it. Another thing he said a little later was, he said, you know, if you have a golf ball sized consciousness and you look out the window, then you have a golf ball sized view. And you know, he used that in several ways, but he said, once you transcend to that infinite field of pure consciousness deep within, and that begins to stick with you more and more throughout activity and throughout your work and throughout your life, then it's just it's a much bigger world. It's much more blissful. It's much more creative. It's much more peaceful. And that's, you know, that song that you played of mine, The World Is My Family, that comes from the Vedic knowledge. And Maharishi used to quote that quite a bit. And, you know, that's what we need more and more in today's world. And peace begins within. But then, as we know, when we get these large groups together, they can have a huge effect on world consciousness and can actually create a very profound and active piece. In this course that Dr. Tony Nader organized, there were people from 131 countries that came to outside of Hyderabad. And I think they ended up with over 10,000 people there. So this idea, you know, as nationalism seems to be on the rise, this idea that we're all just members of this world family and we need to be together and not be at war with each other, but we should be at peace and we should experience the same kind of love that we have for our family, for everyone in the world. So, Jai Gurudev, and again, thank you so much, Raja Anthony, for everything that you're doing. And I thoroughly enjoyed everyone's musical contributions, really, really fabulous. So, until next time, Jai Gurudev.
And one more thing, Raj Anthony, I really do want to encourage everyone to take your wonderful courses. They really are marvelous and extremely just full of knowledge. Beautiful courses.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, the courses are absolutely marvelous. We'll be offering these courses. We're just trying to wrap up plans for a Meru course for all of Europe. And we are also planning, there's 3 courses in the Master Series. Well, the first course was taught last year through MIU's continuing education program. And the second course will be offered, we think, after Guru Purnima, probably in August, through the MIU's continuing education. So they're fabulous. They're all lectures of Maharishi. We spent 2 years researching all of Maharishi's knowledge, all his lectures related to art, music, literature, and entertainment, and went through the process of, you know, with the course development group at Meru, editing them and, all the transcribing every single lecture and, all the video editing, adding the titles on. It was a huge task, but now we have this incredible resource of Maharishi's knowledge in the arts. And we've packaged it up. Now we're offering it to the world, and it'll be there for all time. It's just a great thing. So we're very, very happy.
Fantastic.
I certainly
Fantastic.
welcome everybody to take these courses, especially if you're involved with in any of the arts. Beautiful.
In line with that, Roger Anthony, art is the world family. It doesn't matter the color of your skin, the shape of your eyes, the language that you speak. The arts bring the world family together, not only on the global, but individual, because each of us is an artist within, is a poet within, and the arts bring the world family to all of us.
Indeed, they do. They naturally do that. The arts unify. They're not so much concerned with the. I mean, there is analysis there, as you explained. There's a tremendous amount of process and techniques involved in any field of art, but fundamentally, it's coming from that intuitive level. It's more subjective than just pure science. The theme of the arts is subjective expression, which makes it so blissful and so beautiful for everybody to enjoy.
Just a very quick one to say thank you and to say how absolutely blissful this has been to be with you all and to hear each other's stories. It's sort of surprisingly blissful. I mean, I knew that it would be enjoyable, but there's just really something about, as Maharishi says, seeking the company of the wise. So thank you for letting us all meet together to share our ideas and to hear everybody else's. Very, very fulfilling. Thank you.
It's great. Thank you so much. And I really want to thank you all very much for joining us and taking the time to organize and prepare and to give your presentations. I think the music is just fabulous. It's deep and rich and beautiful and hits on the core principles of life. And, I'm so grateful to all of you for all your dedication to your art. Really, you are the wisest and most enlightened musicians of the world today. To be dedicated to Maharishi's knowledge, or having had the experience of focusing on pure art, which is holy. Art is sacred, fundamentally. The more consciousness we have, the more sacred, the more powerful it is for the world. That we have an opportunity to focus on the arts and consciousness now. It's the time for it. And we invite everybody's participation and involvement, absolutely. So thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again next time. So we'll close out now with just a couple of more minutes of some visuals and music about the Academy of Arts, and that'll be it for today. Jai Gurudev.
Thank you.